Okay, so for this problem, we have to remember, let's just review the relationships. So when we're looking at carbon-13, the lower the number, right, meaning more negative, right, and then that means the lower the number equals higher leafy greens, right, because those types of plants, the C3 plants, incorporate less of the carbon-13. Right? So this is for our carbon. Okay, the more negative, the higher leafy greens. The less negative, the more processed corn and sugarcane. Okay, for nitrogen, let's just do it in another color. For nitrogen, what we know is that for every step up in the food chain, we're going to go up by about 3%, right? So down here at the bottom, where plants are, we're going to have like between 0 and 3, and then as we step up, we're going to get higher and higher. Okay, so if you're consuming plants, then you're going to be in the 6s. If you're consuming things that consume plants, then you're going to be in the 9s, etc. Okay, so those are our trends for carbon and nitrogen. So if we're looking here at this first one, let's see here. If we're looking at this first one right here, it's a negative 20. So looking at all of these, which one eats the most leafy greens? So you would say, okay, so this one here probably eats the negative 26. This is the most leafy greens, right? Whereas this negative 18 is the least of the leafy greens, okay? And then looking at the nitrogen, who's at the bottom of the food chain, this one here, right? This one's at the bottom of the food chain, whereas this one, so this is bottom, and then this one here is more towards the top of the food chain, okay? And so, all right, so looking at these, you'd say, okay, so like a horse, oh, and I know I gave you this hint that horse and cow, right? The difference is that cows are often given fish meal. So they're eating an organism that's eating other organisms, because fish generally eat other organisms. And so that puts the cow up higher on the food chain than the horse, all right? Okay, occasionally. So let's see. So we've got these two, the negative 24 and the negative 26, that are likely plant eaters. And so these are probably going to be our horse and our cow, right? They're eating a lot of leafy greens like hay and stuff like that. But one of them is a step higher on the food chain than the other one. And so then we can see that the leafy green that's really, really low, that's got to be the horse, right? Right here. Whereas the cow that's getting a little bit of fish meal might have a little bit more nitrogen stored in their tissues because they're going up a step in the food chain. Okay, so now we've got those two. And then we have to look at our two middle of the road ones where they're kind of eating a little of both. This is going to be our dog and our cat. So which one's going to be higher in nitrogen? Well, cats eat way more protein. They're almost exclusively carnivores. So you're going to think that the cat will be here, whereas the dog, they're more of an omnivore, and so they're not going to be quite as high as the cat. Okay, now why was I thinking that this right here was not a dog or a cat? Well, this is something that has almost no leafy greens and very high in protein. And like I said, fish eat other organisms that eat other organisms, right? So fish eat things like insects, and insects are eating plants. And so they're actually a whole step higher on the food chain than any others, and they're not eating any vegetables at all. And so there you would put your fish right there. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of how to go about these problems, kind of by a process of elimination.